I'm Park Howell, and welcome to the Business of Story, home to the one and only Story Cycle system. Do you want people to actually give a crap about you and your purpose-driven company? Then our proven system will help you tell them a better friggin' story. And that's the secret sauce, folks. You gotta have a better, clear story. You can get started right now by downloading your 64-page DIY brand story strategy workbook at businessofstory.com. It's filled with examples, links to tutorial videos, and will help you clarify your story to grow your revenue and amplify your impact. And if you're really proud of how your brand story comes together, let me know. We might put you on our show to share your new narrative with the world. So download your Story Cycle Guide right now as you listen to today's show.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture. I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands. People buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. That's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
Hey, are you running a B2B enterprise and are trying to attain hyper-focused, explosive growth, but you're having a hard time getting your zillions of things you need to get done, getting them aligned, getting them balanced? Well, if that's hitting a nerve with you like it frickin' does with me and my Business of Story business, I'd like to point you to an amazing daily podcast created by Jonathan Green and James Carberry over at Sweet Fish Media called the B2B Growth Show. Now, I don't know how Carberry does it, but every single day he brings you top B2B talent and minds who share with you their secrets to business success. Come on, Carberry, you're breaking the curve for the rest of us mere podcast mortals who produce a show just once a week. Anyway, the B2B Growth Show is 8 to 10 minutes long, and it's filled with insightful, biteful tips, tricks, and techniques to plan, organize, market, grow, and manage your B2B business. I was even honored to be on their show, an episode that got featured in the Huffington Post. That's the kind of attention the B2B Growth Show gets, and that's why I think it should get yours. So, if you want to get your B2B stuff together, subscribe to the B2B Growth Show over at Sweet Fish Media right now. Actually, after this episode, when I'm done with you, then go subscribe to the show and start casting a wider net for your business. All right, now on today's show, it's all about the story of alignment and balance. It's coming from a guy who took it on the chops from his wife, who challenged him to bring more work-life balance into their family or suffer the consequences on both ends of the spectrum. Jay Feitlinger, serial entrepreneur, is the founder and CEO of Stringcan Interactive, his 8th company, which is a strategic online marketing agency right around the corner from me here in Scottsdale, Arizona. They even have a regional office in Paris, France. I want a regional office in Paris, France. In 2015, with a bit of a nudge from his wife, Rachel, Jay took the lessons he's learned as a serial entrepreneur and created a 4-day family retreat to help business executives who desire more out of their family lives actually attain it. The result of this process has helped Jay with his own family issues, and as he shared the process with others, he was inspired to have his first book published, Family 2.0. Harness business principles to reboot your family in 4 days. Now, as Jay learned, and you'll hear, finding that ideal work-life balance starts with focusing on your family, which in turn strengthens your business. So please welcome to your earbuds today, Jay Feitlinger. Hey Jay, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to have a fellow Phoenician here. Now, you run Stringcan Interactive, a local digital firm here. You do work all over the place, I guess, but you and I have yet to meet. So I'm looking forward to the day that we actually get to sit across from each other.
You gotta love that. Looking forward to it too.
Yeah. Now, you've been a busy guy in your young career. You have started and run, 8 companies? Stringcan is your 8th company?
That is correct.
What kind of companies were you running? Did you start to get you to where you are today?
My first organization that I launched about 20 years or so ago was a franchise company. We actually did mobile pet grooming to a bunch of homes in Scottsdale, Phoenix, Paradise Valley area, and ran that for a few years before moving on to the next venture.
Mobile pet grooming. What got you into mobile pet grooming?
With that, the kind of, I guess the premise behind that was I actually never really wanted to become an entrepreneur, or never really intended to become one. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the WorldCom, Bernie Ebbers scandal stories, but I worked there for many years in a sales capacity. And I did quite well there, saving up and whatnot. But then when all of the issues happened back in the day, it really freaked me out how, one gentleman could ruin, thousands of lives. And I just decided at that point in time, I really never wanted to, have less control than I really desired working for an organization, and decided that to control my own, destiny, I better become an entrepreneur. But really never had understanding of what that would look like. So I had enough smarts to hire a coach or an advisor, and basically went through various different profiling and whatnot, and determined that I'd be a great business owner one day. But because I didn't really have that business experience, and I was just getting ready to get married and whatnot, I was a little scared. And so he recommended going down the franchise model, and we analyzed a bunch of franchises out there, and this one, based upon the area that we were living and the kind of customers that I liked working with, seemed like a great fit for us to consider proceeding with. And that's really how that whole first business started.
And your business partner was your now wife, Rachel, correct? But back then, she was not. She was just a girlfriend or a fiance?
Yeah, we were living in sin. And she had an amazing job as a marketing manager at a large fencing company, and working for various agencies and whatnot. And I was working at WorldCom. So what's interesting about, that whole process was the initial game plan was going to be, I was going to leave WorldCom. They were going through major layoffs, but I was going to leave the organization, and I would basically, run this business. But what ended up happening was the organization asked me to stay, and the compensation was really hard to turn down. So actually, to add some pressure to our our relationship, me and my wife had the conversation, because I already made the investment in that franchise. And so what ended up actually happening was she actually resigned from her job to then run the business, as a primary owner or the manager, and I would support her, on the side, in the evenings, on the weekends, wherever I could. And so that's really how the organization started. My wife did an amazing job at running the day-to-day, and I helped her with a lot of the operational business, marketing, and sales side.
And what did you learn in that? This is like one of your intros into digital media, marketing, geo-targeting in some respects?
Yeah, I think what ended up happening there was back to when I first got into marketing and sales, I used to work for a very large computer distributor, and I got really close with the vice president of sales there. And he gave me really sound advice one day that talked all about marketers that don't understand the sales world really will not be as effective as a marketer if they understood it. And so I invested a lot of time working with their sales team to really understand what their process was, what the pain points were of their customers, and it just gave me a whole different perspective around marketing. And that's really why I decided actually to go to work for WorldCom, to go into sales, because I really wanted to feel like what it felt like to be in sales, even though I was pretty scared to do that. And through all of that experience, I learned a lot about not just marketing, but also in sales and how those two worlds, collide and come together. And so when I was looking to purchase or launch my first business, I spent a lot of time in my due diligence process on talking with the potential customers that we'd be marketing to really understand what their needs were. And so when we launched that company, we hit the ground running really fast. I did learn that, if you have a strong background in marketing and sales, you could probably pretty much make anything work. But where I found the biggest problem that I ran into is that neither me nor my wife had a strong passion around grooming, or maintaining a mobile pet grooming salon. There's so many complexities to Arizona with the weather and whatnot, with generators and HOA rules and whatnot. It just was a lot of hard knocks learning that business model. And so what ended up happening was, because of the stress I put my wife into by asking her to leave her job and launch and manage this company, neither of us were passionate about it. Every time we ran into a problem, and it pretty much happened almost every single day, it added a lot into our relationship. And so, I was getting concerned about, gosh, this thing is destroying us and we're not really enjoying it. So moving forward, I realized how important passion is. And so I just made it a point of mine that moving forward, every future business I had, there was an element around it that I was really going to enjoy. That way, as with every business, when problems come up, it's more of a hurdle rather than it being a brick wall. And that's really, I think, was probably my biggest lesson learned from that organization is, you've got to have that strong desire to keep moving forward day by day.
So it was kind of a business of convenience, it sounds like, and you both got into it. But once you got into it, you realized you weren't into it. How long did you run the pet grooming business?
So we probably realized, honestly, after about, 14 to 16 months into it, that this was not for us. For example, I don't know about you, but my belief is that if you're running an organization, you need to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do whatever it takes to fulfill your brand promise. And a lot of our customers were relying on us a lot in regards to taking care of their cats and dogs. And so there would be days when a groomer would call in sick, and we had a full day of appointments. And that then required my wife or myself to have to put on the grooming uniform and get out there and start doing it. I don't know about you, if you've ever groomed a cat or a dog, if not your own, it's not a very fun process.
Yeah, you got to be into it. That's for sure.
You really do, and neither of us were into it. Plus, when you're sitting inside of basically a converted horse trailer in 120 degrees with this hot water coming out, you're basically in a steam room. It just was miserable.
You better love it at that point. So advanced, you jump ahead here about 2 decades, and you're now running Stringcan Creative. You did a number of jobs or a number of other companies in between. Are you growing these companies and selling them, or how did you knock off 8 companies in 20 years?
I would say the exit strategy of them were often determined based upon the market. For example, we owned a real estate publishing business. The concept behind that was we were connecting real estate commercial sellers to higher income investors like doctors and lawyers and whatnot. And that was a great idea. And then we launched it, and 4 months later, the real estate market crashed.
What year was that? Are you talking 2008, or is this before that?
2008, that time frame. So, basically a couple of the businesses either had to be closed to, protect my family, or just I really wanted to pivot for various reasons. The last company that I had, we were one of the first social commerce apps we had through Facebook. And that organization I did sell with the intention I used the proceeds of that to help me fund a fast launch of Stringcan Interactive that we have today.
Gotcha. So what is that theme that you learned through all of these very disparate businesses, it sounds like? What does it tell you as an entrepreneur, and a guy who got into it who said, I never really meant to be an entrepreneur, but you've kind of become a serial entrepreneur. So Is there a consistent theme of learning of truth that you got by going through all of these different companies?
Yeah, definitely a bunch of various things. Probably one of the biggest ones for me is, hiring people smarter around you. Through business school and whatnot, I was always taught, do a SWOT analysis. I did one of those on myself. And for whatever reason, my first, I don't know, 4 or 5 companies, I focused way too much effort on my weaknesses and my threats. And I found that that was a really bad use of my time. And so about 2 businesses ago, I realized that if I just really hone in on my strengths, my superpowers, which, again, I'm really good at mentorship. I'm really good at listening. I'm really good at, solving problems. There's a couple things that I'm really strong at. Things I'm not strong at are things like operations. And so what I've done with Stringcan is I've hired people that are very strong in areas that I'm weak. And that way then we really together build this really powerful team. I have a leadership team in place that has just amazing, unique gifts that are just very different than mine, but complement me. So I would say that's probably been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the years is, and rather than just saying, I'm going to give up, instead go out there and find partners or people that can really, kind of fill those gaps.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that, we always want to keep learning, but never be the smartest guy in the room. Because number one, don't ever think you are, because chances are you aren't. But as you said, is surround yourself with top talents that, that are better than you. I mean, I've learned that same lesson. So here you are, you've got 2 daughters, right? 2 preteen daughters. You've been married all these years. Business is going well. But then something happened that really turned your world upside down and set you on a new trajectory.
Yes, I think you're referring probably to the family stuff.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep. And we've all been there. Yep.
Yeah. So, again, luckily for me, my wife, Rachel, has been with me through thick and thin. So she's seen me go through, jobs and do really well there, my ups and downs. And then through all the past businesses we've had, she's been there by my side. I guess the dilemma that I've run into is, I was raised, for good or bad, from a perspective of, you have to be, a giver, you have to be a provider, to be a great husband and father, you need to, be able to provide for them various different things. And that translated to me to mean, get a good job, work long hours, every, waking minute, find ways to, monetize your efforts to be able to, provide for your family, roof over the head, food in the mouth, those kind of things. And so what ended up happening was about, maybe three years ago, we were fine in our marriage and our relationship, but it wasn't like the best possible marriage out there. Obviously, again, a lot of my friends, you watch my Facebook posts, and obviously I'm not a very negative person, so the perception was, wow, Jay's got it all, an amazing business, an amazing team, an amazing family, everything's wonderful. But that really wasn't the situation. Me and my wife were just, not connected in various different areas. And what ended up happening was that, I found, at least in my business, that the more energy I invested in the organization, the better we did. So that meant to me, every waking minute, I'm focusing on helping my team, helping our clients, exceeding goals. And what ended up happening was I would come home from a long day of work, and even though I was at home for most dinners, I wasn't really present. I was either too tired from a very exhausting day, or I'm thinking about the next, email I need to send. And I was really bad about constantly saying I got one more email to do. And, me and my wife went on a date night to a really nice restaurant one night. And after a couple glasses of wine, we just started having a conversation. And she made a pretty profound statement to me that, I feel like we're more like roommates than we are, a married couple, which absolutely killed me. And then literally the next morning, my youngest daughter, Ella, she wanted to go in the swimming pool with me. I promised her a few days before that we'd have some, daddy-daughter time, and I had to get this proposal off because it was so important. And I basically told her, in the morning that I have to work on this. And so that weekend was a, pretty depressing weekend where I went into the office that week realizing I had my priorities majorly out of whack. And I really wanted to stay married, and I wanted to be there for my wife and my daughters. So I decided I needed to make a significant shift, and I basically pulled up my business plan and my vision for that year, and I literally knocked out $1 million from it. So I can really just, find a way to invest more time in my family. And I just found that my biggest problem was around communication. I really had no problems doing this at the office. I never run away from a confrontation, and I'm really, really good at, being there and helping my team. But when it came to home, I just felt lost. I don't know why. And so I spent, that whole rest of the year just really diving in and trying to figure out how do I solve this problem.
And that led you to a program that you put together. And I suppose just, they say we don't learn in our successes, we learn in our failures, or we learn during the hard times. So it sounds like this has been a theme of yours throughout all of your businesses, but now you found you had a business that was going well. And even at one point you were recognized as one of the best places to work in Phoenix. So you had that dialed in the business, but you didn't have it dialed in at home. And it led you to publishing a book this year and a program called Family 2.0, Harness Business Principles to Reboot Your Family in 4 days. So how did you arrive at the program? And tell us a little bit about the program. What can our listeners take away from it that they can start applying right now?
I think great question. So I guess, to put in some perspective, after that weekend, I spent probably a few weeks on just trying to think about this. What I did was I went ahead and analyzed my last, 8 total companies of, how I've gotten through, major business challenges that most business owners run through. And so a light bulb went off for me. I said, gosh, why don't I just follow the exact same process I use for my companies with my family? So after a few weeks of that, depressing weekend with my wife and my daughters, I approached my wife and I basically outlined for her the process I go through for our company, where every year I analyze, my longer term vision and then how I'm going to basically chunk that out for the next year. And I thought, why don't we just follow that exact same process, for my family? And my wife had wanted really nothing to do with it. Her.
You think you're nuts?
Yeah,
like, that might work at the office, but it's not going to work for me. It's not human enough.
That really is exactly pretty much word for word what she said. The only thing she added on was, "We're not your employees." I know I'm probably making her sound like a mean person. She's actually amazing. She's very direct and honest. And it just, there's a lot of obviously really good emotional conversations around that. I'm just kind of jumping right to the point there,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
that really was, the main aha for me was I needed to approach this differently and be kind of a chameleon. Where I just can't go to her and be like, we got to write a business plan and, our vision statement and, do a business planning day. Like none of that. It just sounded boring. And then again, I really wanted my daughters, who at that point in time were only about 10 and 8 years old. Not the most, mature kids yet. And so I basically went back to the drawing board, as I normally do, and I basically just figured out a really creative way to get done what I wanted. And the thing about my family is we really do enjoy going on vacations together. Unfortunately, the last few that we had gone on, I was doing the typical, I'll get up in the morning and work on business, which obviously was not fair to them or myself. So what I did was I went back to my wife a few weeks later and I said, look, let's do this. Let's go ahead and get an amazing cabin up north in Arizona, around December time when it's snowing and the kids can play in the snow. We'll go away for, 4 or 5 days. And basically we're just going to go away and just talk through, where our family is at and where we want to go. And the agreement's going to be no technology. So those just ideas immediately sold it. My wife said it sounded like a lot of fun. And then basically we spent the next month together, co-creating what this would look like. So I really needed her obviously buy-in. And obviously, I needed her support to kind of think through how we would outline this process. And then basically we just kind of fine-tuned it. Obviously, it had some rough edges to it, being that we were the first guinea pig. But we went away a few months later, the four of us, and every day we just worked on various different things. For example, one day.
Take us through the process. Yeah.
That'd be great. So I think, the first big thing, each year, what we've been doing since then is, what is the one theme or one gap that we have as a family? And in that year, the biggest challenge that we had was respect. No one was respecting each other around, our personal desires and what we wanted for our families. So, we spent basically the first day just talking about what does respect mean, and we all kind of defined that. The next day, we focused on, what did the past year look like, ups and downs. So I had all the kids making a really fun collage. All four of us did that. So we had all these great magazines and markers and crayons and just everything you could think of. And the kids were spending, a couple hours cutting up stuff and, pasting it onto a board. And then once everyone was done, we basically had each person present, their kind of year in review, which was really eye-opening to me. A couple of things said were a little painful, like my daughters would each bring up concerns about me not being around and all those kind of things. And then that was really the theme of that day. And then the next day, we focused on, okay, what do we want the next year to actually look like? So we did a very, very similar concept, but it kind of centered around, a couple different areas, family, spiritual, relationships, money, school or career, all those various different aspects. So the concept behind it was, hey, a year from now, if we go and look at this year in review, what are the things as a family and as individuals we want to have accomplished? And then really then the last day was all about, okay, now that we have this vision board put together, how do we then support each other to kind of put some, goals around this? And again, I didn't use a lot of these business words. I made it a lot more fun, for the kids and whatnot, but it was all about crafts and fun and all that kind of stuff. And so what happened was, I was really excited. It felt like in one weekend, our entire, family was transformed. And so I did post on Facebook a bunch of pictures. I was really proud of my family, my wife and my kids. And I was blown away by the hundreds of responses I got from other entrepreneurs and whatnot. And I literally spent probably the most of January in that year just sitting down with all these entrepreneurs of some pretty impressive businesses, just kind of in more detail walking through my 4-day process. And because a couple of the people, they actually followed it in that next few months, and a couple of them really encouraged me that you've got to write a book and give back. And it was a bucket list item of mine, not in that year, but I went ahead and I just basically every morning got up an extra hour and a half early, and I spent a year writing out Family 2.0.
And so it just started with that vacation cabin in northern Arizona, you working with your family. They were your beta test.
Exactly.
Yes. Getting through that. And you would spend all day. So I would imagine you'd spend a little time on it, take a break, go for a hike, come back, but stay very focused in those four main areas.
Exactly. I mean, I think every day I focused a lot of energy on that balance of fun and work. So one day we went sledding, and the next day we went and did a really fun cooking experience. My wife and daughters love looking at homes. So we actually went and met with a friend of ours and went around and looked at, homes in the area. So, I did find a really creative way to kind of break it up. The kids, it seemed like, never felt like this was, work. It was all about fun. And, I had to be very vulnerable. It's not fun hearing from your wife or your daughters about, the issues that you personally have. In my mind, I'm just trying so hard to be a good husband and dad, and when you're hearing that it's just not good enough, it was really emotionally painful for me. But I knew that if I can just get through hearing some of these hard things and not get defensive, I knew that in the long run this was going to be, the changing point of our family.
So you did this first 3 years ago, and then
Yep.
did you do check-ins throughout the year to make sure you were all on course?
Yeah, so really what was funny is it wasn't even my idea. I wish it was. It was one of my daughters. They talked about how one of their friends, the family has like family meetings, once in a while. So I'm like, ooh, opportunity. So similar like I do at the office. And so every Sunday evening, before or after dinner, we would just start talking about, how the last week went, what we're planning on, working on the next week. We talk about any progress we're making around the goals. So really, it was an ongoing process, week over week over week, and it was really cool, like watching, my whole family, almost every single goal that we set out to in that first year was accomplished, and a couple of the goals were kind of aggressive.
Well, give us some examples.
So I think one of them was my daughter, she really wanted to do more singing and learning how to play guitar. Again, I surprisingly to some of my family and friends, I actually was a very shy, insecure kid. And so my oldest daughter, who is kind of opposite of how I was when she was a kid, that idea blew me away that she was comfortable or wanted to be, standing up in front of a stage and be singing to a bunch of strangers. So to support her, we got her signed up with this really cool music and singing program. And within a few months, she literally was standing on a stage at this really cool club down in Phoenix, singing to, hundreds of people. We had her, we got her a guitar and she was learning how to play guitar. She went online and she found an online, guitar class. So it's just all these little things that the kids kept doing, kind of, inching towards accomplishing their goals. It just made me really proud.
Yeah, and I suppose it's just instead of just living life and going through and seeing where it takes it, this planning, this family 2.0 literally puts a plan into motion and you find out what really matters to your loved ones. And then you are also there to hold them accountable if they want to go and sing and do these kinds of things. It's a part of their plan. So you're there to support them wherever you can. But if you're not talking about it and putting it down into a family business plan, then a lot of times it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think again, like I think I learned that lesson, from the business. Like in our office, we mount our goals on the wall and they're very visual and everyone knows what's going on. But I find that there's really kind of two benefits to that at the office. Benefit one is, I don't know about you, but when I visually can see my goals up there, I'm constantly reminded of it. It's hard to ignore it. But then two, my favorite part about that is I find that the right kind of team in place, they're constantly looking for ways to support me. And so, I am embarrassed to admit that, again, after about 10 years, I really didn't know like what my kids wanted to accomplish. I was just taking it day by day and doing all I could to try to just survive. And once I better understood like what they each individually wanted to work on, it allowed me and the rest of the family to support them. So it just was kind of fun, constantly looking for opportunities. Again, like if I didn't know my daughter had an interest in learning how to play guitar, I don't think I ever would have gone out there to try to find an online guitar program for her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really where I think it's been, really, really amazing, kind of watching all of that. Of course, my biggest fear, and often the question I was getting from a lot of, friends and advisors was, you're investing so much time working on all this family stuff. Aren't you concerned that your business is going to go in a total wrong direction? And so that was definitely a fear that was constantly in the back of my mind, for that first year or so.
And what happened?
So, what's funny about that to your question, there definitely were moments that we had some challenges. I made a commitment to myself and my family that, when I'm home, I'm going to be present. So I stopped doing the, running into the house and getting on the computer again. I stopped pulling up my phone during meals. I actually would leave my phone in the office, my home office. I started doing a lot of those, not working on the weekends things. And so there definitely were moments, we did lose a couple deals. Probably we should have lost them anyway. I mean, if someone's expecting me to give them a proposal, over the weekend, that probably isn't the right kind of client to work with anyway. But what was funny is after probably about 8 to 12 months of kind of working through this family process, I found that personally, I was so much happier. I didn't have the guilt anymore that I had. I was sleeping so much better. I was having a lot healthier conversations with my wife and my kids. And so I was coming home happier, and then I was leaving home happier, which then made me a lot more focused at work. I also found that for me, because I knew I didn't have 24 hours possibly every day to work on things, I got a lot more efficient in setting my own daily priorities, and then being a lot smarter about delegating to my awesome team. And so actually what ended up happening was the business actually started performing a ton better the more actually I removed myself from it, which was really kind of cool to see all that kind of stuff happening. Everything was kind of clicking in the right directions.
And was it performing better because you were relinquishing control and letting your people do their thing?
Um, I think it was probably a combination of stuff. One is by practicing our business process in a more of a family-friendly way on my family, it actually helped me actually uncover new ways to support my team, my clients. It actually, which is interesting, is from that process, it actually made me realize I wasn't practicing what I preach at my own company. So again, I would say when this whole process started, the company was doing well, but you literally can come to our website and you could remove our logo and pretty much put any other 800 agencies in Arizona on our site. We all sounded exactly the same way. The more and more I started working on this family stuff, the more I was tracking these amazing entrepreneurs that also wanted to focus on family. What ended up happening was we started bringing on more and more clients that were also family focused. And it made me realize about 2 years ago, you know what? I'm going to go all in on this. I actually your branding process, I actually followed. I downloaded your book, and it just kind of thinking through like your story and your strengths and whatnot. And so basically, we went all in on this, and actually now we actually position ourselves as Stringcan focuses on helping organizations that are also focusing on families, things like swim schools and gymnastics and dance and whatnot. So kind of everything really came full circle, and so now my book is sort of turned into this impressive business card, I guess.
Well, on your site, it says Stringcan Interactive, growing family-oriented businesses with online marketing. So you weren't really that focused on it until you went through this with your own family.
Exactly. I mean, again, I think that's where the beauty of all this is coming into place. I know that most entrepreneurs, myself included, the whole work-life balance is really challenging. And what I was doing wrong in the past is I thought, okay, I'm going to basically do, I got these 20 priorities for my business and these 20 for my family and these 20 for my personal life. And it was really hard for me to shift that focus, every hour going back and forth and back and forth. So instead, I just changed my mindset. And now what I do is I set, my priorities in those various different areas. And whatever I'm working on, I'm just focused on that one thing at a point in time. And then just naturally, everything is kind of just balancing itself out, and everything is helping each other. So I'm often telling people now that, if you really have a strong purpose of, what you're trying to do with your organization and your life, all these things just start really, benefiting each other. That really is what I'm most proud about, probably, is because of my family issues and working through making my family a lot healthier, mentally and physically and whatnot. It's really paid off in spades with my company. And then my team members, I'm noticing when they see me, and again, I've never been a grumpy person, but when they're seeing me full of joy and happiness, I guess it's kind of it passes off to them as well. I just find that the happier my team is, the happier our work product is, the happier our clients are. It just kind of goes all around, which is really kind of cool. So, again, I'm sure you've seen out there, it's really scary to make those kind of commitments. I had a lot of very smart entrepreneurs telling me I was being really short-sighted. The fear that a lot of my advisors had was by me going all in and saying out to the world, this is what we are specializing in. Because of my talents and experience in this online marketing space, they were thinking that I was leaving millions of dollars on the table. And what I found is actually the opposite happened. By me really specializing in one area, it allowed me to hire differently, train differently, build process and procedures, and our profitability has tripled in the last 2 years, year over year. Mainly because not that we ever would, kind of templatize our clients, but after working with 30 different swim school locations, we start getting really smart about how to help them with their online marketing, and they're benefiting, and so are we. So that's been probably super, one of the super exciting parts, outcomes of this whole process.
Well, and I'm curious too, in this process, did you lose any employees and or any clients while you're going through this and they're saying, geez, we're losing Jay. He's off on this family thing. He's not focused here. And then when he shows back up, all we're going to do is focus on family-owned businesses. I'm not really sure I'm on board with this. How did that play out with your staff and your clients?
Yeah, so we definitely did have, and it wasn't all roses here. We definitely did have some negative things that happened between staff, relationships, clients, etc. I've always been a very transparent, open person, and so there was zero surprises in my team. I mean, I had them involved in this process, for months, and debating back and forth the pros and cons. There were some team members that we had in place that were just uncomfortable with the direction that we were headed. Some of my team members, the MBA, people and whatnot. We had some very large clients, paying, $500,000+ a year in online marketing management fees. This focus did not at all pertain to them. They really enjoyed working on these massive global projects. The direction we were headed was now to really become an expert in the small to medium-sized business space. And so a couple employees did decide to leave because they really just wanted to work on much bigger companies. And I am actually friends with them, a couple of them still. So I was really supportive around that. And then we did lose a couple clients because they were really concerned about our lack of focus, especially in the B2B space.
Right.
So, again, there were some moments when I would lose some sleep worrying about like, oh my gosh, I make a huge mistake. But
But you felt right,
it felt
right?
in my gut. It felt so right. I knew that if I could just get through a couple of these, scary moments, I knew that it was going to turn itself back around. And then luckily, it did. But, again, it's paid off in spades. I mean, now we're just attracting the right kind of staff members, people that have expertise in working with, moms and dads. We actually even had some conversations with, some amazing moms who used to work at marketing agencies, but they, don't want to go back to a full-time job, and they're looking for opportunities to kind of get back into the marketing world. So we kind of have a really cool model that we're building out there. So, that is kind of where we're at now. I mean, obviously the past year or two has been absolutely amazing, but there were definitely, some darker days there.
Well, I think you are emulating what everybody should do. And whether it's family-owned businesses or purpose-driven businesses, whatever that is to find a category. And this has been completely underscored to me. I just finished reading Christopher Lochhead's book, Play Bigger: How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Market Categories. And it's all about designing a product or a market category. And it is it's been around for a long time, but people haven't paid a lot of attention to it. So what you've done to go and help your families, you created this market category about online digital marketing for family-owned businesses. People get really freaked out about that when you get so specific because, as you said earlier, they're saying, oh, Jay, you're nuts. You're leaving so much on the table. You could be doing this and this and this. But you also said before that comment, when you went to our website, we looked like everybody. So therefore, we did not stand out. We did not resonate with any one thing. So if you haven't read his book, it's called Play Bigger. I had him on the Business of Story, about 2 months ago. And he was a quick guest on. I didn't get a chance to read his book prior to it. We had a wonderful conversation. Highly recommend it. Christopher Lochhead. But his book, I just finished it up, and I'm actually using it now on 2 branding programs to help really clarify and define a category in 2 extraordinarily noisy, busy markets, industries that both are really hard to stand out in, just like you and just what I experienced when I was running my agency at Parking Company, that if you didn't stand for one thing and do it really, really well, then you essentially didn't stand for anything, and it's hard to run a business that way.
Love it. Yep, we're on the same page. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Now, Your Family 2.0, it's a book, so people can download it. Do you actually have a workshop or a program they can go through, or is it if they just simply follow the book that they can do this for themselves?
Yeah, so what happened there was the draft number, I don't know, 5 or 6 with the publisher. We actually had a couple entrepreneurs that I thought I was actually writing the book for. And then their feedback was, I'm loving this, but, there's a lot going on here. And they weren't often the most, fast on their feet, creative types. And it just made them feel very overwhelmed. So I went back to the drawing board and actually, for the book, built out a very detailed workbook. I actually even had a friend that downloaded the book and just did the workbook. He didn't even read the book. I thought I was very strange. But anyways, so the concept behind that is that, I would encourage people, if they're going to get the book, to read it. And then basically go to my website, they download the workbook. There's no additional cost to it. And then basically that workbook just kind of walks them through, the supplies they need for their 4-day family retreat. Suggestions on how to, run their workshop. And then really every day exactly the process to follow. I've had a lot of people go through it, and it's been really positive feedback. That being said, though, is I have had some people reach out to me because they just wanted kind of more of a facilitated process. And so, for example, I was a speaker at a conference for entrepreneurs about a year ago. It was a 2-day workshop. And basically, in day 1, I was one of the speakers, and I kind of walked them through my, very honest story of my, personal struggles as an entrepreneur and as a husband and a father. And then I kind of walked them through exactly my process. And then it was really cool that on day 2, I did actually a workshop with the husband and the wife. So I basically created some worksheets that, they filled out, and really the main benefit of that one process was creating alignments. I was not always great at dealing with some of the scarier confrontational type of stuff. I would bury it deep and assume that it would go away. And of course, that was very foolish. The more and more I buried those things, the worse those stupid issues transformed. And so that alignment process was really all about, let's look at the last year as a husband or a wife and kind of talk about what the ups and downs were and just have really healthy conversation around that. So, I'm doing probably once a quarter, these kind of sessions, either speaking at a conference or, doing maybe a small group workshop. But that's my plan for 2018 is I want to try to find a way to, build out a larger program that can help people with some of this, because I know going through it myself, it is not the simplest thing to resolve.
And where can people find your book?
Probably the best place I would say is Amazon. So they can just go to Amazon and just type in Family 2.0, and obviously it would show up there. It's available today in both hardcover as well as on Kindle. Or they obviously can go to my personal website, which is jfeitlinger.com. And on there, they can learn a little more about me. I'm trying to write a blog post about once a week. Again, my passion and purpose now is really helping on the growth side for personal, family, or business. So my topics always focus around those kind of areas. So if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, you probably would find the content of great value. And then when they get the book, they would go to the website and download the workbook from that page.
Mm-hmm. Isn't and by the way, it's Feitlinger, Feitlinger, jfeitlinger.com. That's where you're going to find it. But it's interesting to me as we bring this show to a close is thinking through your story. So here you are, brought up like so many of us in being told, work hard, be the man of the house, go out, do what you got to do, bring home the bacon, and then take care of your family. And yet the universe kind of punched you in the nose, as it does to all of us, when your wife says, I'm tired of being a roommate. Let's figure this thing out. And you sit down, you do soul searching, you take your family through a 4-day process. Sound like they loved it. They were all in by the time it was all said and done. And how that completely refocused, I should say, changed your story as a husband, as a father, as an entrepreneur, a business owner, as a friend, as an employer. And now it sounds like, and you can just hear it in your voice, that it's this balance that you have achieved, or I don't know if you ever achieve it. Maybe it's this balance that you are forever in pursuit of. And in doing so, you do get more balanced in the process of family life. And now it is absolutely connected to your business life with your focus on family-owned companies. And to the point that you've even stepped back from your business a little bit. Let your great, smart people do their thing while you balance it, your time and energy and focus between your family and your company. And you said that you're currently in 2017 is one of your best years you've ever had.
It's been absolutely amazing. I'm so blessed. I mean, it's just been, of course we have our days. I'm not trying to paint this picture of like, oh my gosh, my life is perfect.
Sure.
I still have fights with my wife, and I have fights with my daughters. They're 13 and 10 now, and they're acting like they're 20 and 17.
Oh God,
yeah,
it's
been interesting. And again, me and my team members, we'll have some debates and whatnot. But end of the day, I would say from this process, the biggest benefit has been for me to learn that I gotta dig deep and know when to shut up. And that's been really beneficial. Is again, I have to trust those that are around me that they're going to do good. And I've been proven right over and over again. So yeah, this year has been really amazing across the board between family relationships and my business and whatnot. So I'm just so excited for what 2018 is going to look like.
So Jay, as we finish up here, what would you recommend our listeners 1, 2, or 3 things they should do besides getting your book that they could do right now if they find that they are out of balance with their family life and their business life?
Great question. I guess the first thing I would recommend, and you already kind of alluded to that a little bit, is look in the mirror. Again, I've never been one to be overly, defensive and finger pointing, but I was doing some of that. And so I would say before you start asking others to change, my advice would be is just do some really serious soul searching and determine, where are you at and where do you want to go. That gave me really good direction around some of the challenges I had. The second thing I would say is if you do have children, I would recommend if you're married or have a partner or whatever your family situation dynamics are, you got to get aligned there first. Actually, it was funny. That's my wife's idea, or her brilliant idea. I just wanted to go right into the family retreat, and she was really concerned that our kids would find it to be very overwhelming if me and her weren't aligned. And so basically we spent honestly a few months on trying to resolve some of the baggage that we had from past nonsense. So that was really helpful. And then again, I think third and finally is having some kind of family vision or direction you want to head. We actually, it was kind of fun at our in between our first and our second retreat, we actually created a family mission statement. We actually made a cool poster and we mounted it up, and we're constantly talking about that and checking in and make sure that we're all living that same kind of direction. So I think just having things in writing aligned and very visual will ensure that you're all kind of driving in the right direction.
And I would add a fourth to it, and that would be never, ever open a pet grooming business out of a rehabbed horse trailer in Phoenix, Arizona. Maybe that kicked everything off.
Oh, I love that. That is a great point.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for being here on Business of Story. Really great to have you on the show, and I'm looking forward to actually meeting you in person. You're right around the corner, so we have no excuse.
I love it. Great meeting you. I really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
You're welcome, Jay, and thank you all for listening to this show. And do as Jay did. If you are trying to really understand and clarify your story to bring some balance to it on the brand side of life, download my workbook, 64-page workbook that will take you from start to finish through the 10 steps of the proven story cycle system. I've got examples in there, plus links to tutorial videos on each page. Give it a shot, and it'll help you clarify your story to grow your revenue and amplify your impact. And you can find it there at businessofstory.com. Thanks so much for listening, and if you like what you're hearing, feel free to share my show with your friends and your family and your colleagues and anybody else who can learn from the brilliant minds like Jay that we have here every week. So look forward to having you back next Sunday when we'll have another story artist on to help you craft and tell compelling stories that sell. And until then, and as Jay has proven in this show, remember that the most potent story you are ever going to tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a good one, and until next Sunday, have a wonderful life.